you like?
I'm on. Good afternoon and welcome to my show. I'm Rusty Strait and this is Conversations with Rusty. I am also the senior reporter for the Hemet San Jacinto Chronicle. Now, let's set the rules here. My show is going to be you and me sitting around at the kitchen table or in the den and having a discussion. My show is going to be to entertain, inform, and educate. And I'll be talking, it's just us, as though there was nobody else in the room. And I'll cover a lot of things. I'm sure you're sick and tired of politics by now, and so am I. And this will not be about politics. I may have city officials or county officials on the show from time to time, and I will have guests, but there'll be a variety of them, and there'll be the things that you want to hear about. So I'd like to introduce, you know who I am, and I'd like to introduce my sidekick, Mark Lentine. Mark, say hello.
Is this where I just say hello? So I'll just say hello.
No, what's on your mind today?
Me, well, I just want to say that, when I kicked around the idea and I said, let's do this, and everybody's heard this story probably to ad infinitum, but I will just say it again. I love Rusty dearly. I had been reading his books for years. I came out to him at 4.5 years ago. Was on the old newspaper, the Valley Chronicle. And when it came to introduce Rusty, Christmas said, and Rusty said, I'm Ray Strait. Glad to meet you, kid. And I looked and I kept looking and he said, why are you looking at me? I said, well, I used to read the books of a Ray Strait who was a Hollywood insider. And at that time, I'll just parenthetically say, there were only two people that we trusted that we knew would always be honest. Bob Osborne, Robert Osborne. And who went on to TCM, Turner Classic Movies. And the other one was Rusty. And so I said, but of course you can't be him because by now he'd be dead. And before I could say dead, Rusty said he'll be 95 this May and you're looking at him. And I love Rusty dearly. We aggravate each other. So that'll be part of the fun of the show. But it's just good to be here because I love you dearly. And I just so people should hear more about. There are people, by the way, that that have known you for 15, 20 years. And because I'm just blessed enough to know you so closely and you and I talk so personally and I come to you for advice, that have said to me, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, the question is
you can't believe what... Go ahead.
Mark, the thing there is people only know what they see.
Right.
No one ever completely knows another person because they only see what's revealed because most people don't reveal their whole selves. I am one that has nothing to hide. I'm a wide open book.
Right.
You want to know about me, ask me, but don't volunteer information about me.
Well, I do. I brag about you a lot. And by the way, speaking about bragging, I know you said don't talk too much and let you talk, and I get that. But you guys have to literally right this second go to Amazon and look for Bug House Blues. Rusty, it's now his 38th book. And
my first full novel.
Right. I read the other 37. They were all bios, Hollywood bios. We will get into it as we go, the lives, because this guy's lived about 10 different lives. But to keep to the point, this is Rusty's first novel. It's called Bug House Blues. I would say it's autobiographical.
There may be some autobiographical stuff in it, but we'll get to that in due time.
Okay. But Bug House, what's the title?
Bug House Blues.
Okay. Go order it.
Yeah, it's got a good blue cover. I'll say that.
That's a great cover.
It is a great cover. The cover is a picture of Washington Park on the north side of Chicago, known as Bug House Square, where all the idiots and preachers get out on their soapbox and talk, and that's the way it is. But we have local things. This valley is a wonderful valley. I adopted this as my hometown. That's why I'm here. People always ask me, you came from Los Angeles, a big city. Why would you come out here to a little hick town like Hemet? Well, I moved out here to Idlewild in 1980. 3 years later, I got tired of going up and down the hill changing chains because I was doing a lot of book interviews, and I had to go into L.A., and putting on and taking off chains can be a bore. And so I moved down to Hemet. And I was a single parent with two teenage boys, and they were going to Hemet High School. So it was a lot more convenient to move into Hemet. So I've been here since 1983, and I've been in my present location in Hemet since '86. So I'm kind of firmly installed as a resident of Hemet, and I love this place. I'm interested in the issues that you're interested in, and I'm going to give you my email so you can send me questions you like, things. It's Rusty Strait, and you spell the Strait, Strait, rustystrait@gmail.com. And you send me your questions or anything you'd like to talk about or ask me, and I'll have my phone with me, and I can look for the emails, and I can answer your questions. Because we don't have a call-in number here. You know, we're a small station.
And you will answer because you don't duck anything.
Oh, I don't duck anything. I'm straight on. Everybody knows me in this town, and I can't get away with anything because wherever I go, somebody knows me. They see this white hat and this captain's hat, and boy, they right away they're taking notes.
Now, Eddie, I'm just going to stop you for a second. Eddie's telling me, what is the call-in? Because we do have a call-in.
So I can set that up for you if you want it.
Okay, so if you want to have, we can have call-ins if you want.
Well,
next show.
We will do that. Yeah, I like the idea of call-ins.
Now I'm going to ask you another question.
Yes, go ahead.
Have we figured out for these poor people who are viewing? Have we figured out a set? And we know it's going to be Saturday. What's going to be the time, Eddie? I don't know.
Yeah, Eddie, you
or Lori. Lori's the boss.
Lori, what time on Saturday? Is it going to be noon or 1 o'clock or what?
Can we do
noon?
Noon's good.
It'll be noon on Saturdays. Today we got a slow start because
we have
Mark and Eddie had to talk politics for an hour and a half. And but I want to talk about issues of the town and the things you're interested in and how we can better improve our community, because we have a good community. The people in Hemet have been the most wonderful people to me since I moved here.
Now, can I interrupt?
You can say something, yes.
Thank you.
This is going to be Bickerson's. I can see that.
I'm just going to say one thing because I just think it's amazing. May 17th, 1924.
That's it. The year I was born is the year the FBI was created.
Yeah, I'm sure you're loving.
And they've been chasing me ever since. I'm sure.
Actions now, but and it's West Virginia, right?
I was born in Ohio. I was born in the rubber city, Akron, Ohio, and I always thought I was one of Goodyear's mistakes. But anyway, and my parents moved back to West Virginia 3 months after I was born. So my people come from West Virginia.
Your grandmother and all your aunts.
All my aunts and uncles and great grandparents are all from West. They're all hillbillies from West Virginia, and most of the time, I grew up in a very fundamental area of the country, but it was amazing how unfundamental it got after dark.
Well, I know, and we have to talk about that.
Hillbillies have fun. Don't worry about that.
Here's the things that I want to bring out. I know Rusty wants to talk about the community. Of course, we all live here in Hemet, San Jacinto area. So, but one of the things is that you're going to find that this is why I want to really write Rusty's. You have growing up hillbilly, but I want to write the whole story. And the reason is that how many people do you know? You met FDR, right, when you were a little kid?
Oh, yes. I met the president once, quite by accident.
Right, when you were fishing. So this is the thing, because I love Rusty so much, I know a lot of his history. Sang with, this may not be a big deal now, but one of the instrumental, no pun intended, big bands, Lionel Hampton, who was with Benny Goodman and played with some with Tommy Dorsey. So you sang with Lionel Hampton.
Yeah, for about 3 months on a tour. It's a thing I won, and I got to tour with him. And I got to sing.
Jane, go ahead.
And of course, 10 years with Jane Mansfield.
With Jane Mansfield, who was one of the major stars of her era. And we're going to come back to all this good, cool stuff. But you would have been with her the night she died, right? Your wife was... Tell that story.
Well, the story was, I traveled a lot with Jane all over the world. And she was going to Biloxi, Mississippi to doing a nightclub act. And we'd been there before, and we had such a wonderful time. But my wife was pregnant with my youngest son, and she was having a terrible time with the pregnancy.
Mark or Russell?
That was Russell. And she didn't want me to leave, and so between her and Jane, they cooked up some excuse that I couldn't go, and I had to stay home. And then Jane gets to Biloxi and calls me. I was so angry with her because then she says, "I wish you were here." But the thing was, this is an interesting story. I came to Hollywood to meet Jane Mansfield. I wanted to meet Jane Mansfield. I thought she needed a friend. And when I got a job out here, I transferred out here with Southern Pacific, and then I left my job and went to apply for another job. And there was a kid in the apartments where I lived that said, "You would like to work in the movie industry." And of course, everybody would. And so he sent me to an employment agency in downtown Los Angeles. And then the lady found jobs for kids in the industry. And she didn't have anything. She asked me to come back next week. And I came back. And she says, "Well, what do you know about business management?" Well, I'd been to a couple of business colleges, but business management per se, I said, "Oh, I know a lot about it," because I always figured if you get your foot in the door, somebody will help you, especially if you're young. And so I went for the interview with James, was a business manager. He had a lot of writers. He was a business manager for a lot of screenwriters.
And that was Charlie Oldring, right?
Charles Goldring. And he had a lot of people, Ava Gabor, Jim Backus, Keenan Wynn.
Both of whom became friends, right?
Oh, I became friends with all of them. And so when I was doing the interview, I didn't think I was going to get the job because he was kind of stiff and formal. But he said to me, he said, "Well, you know, Ray, I yell a lot." And I looked right back at him and I said, "Mr. Goldring, spent 6 years in the military. I've been yelled at by experts. I got the job. I went to work on the following Monday, and a true story if I ever told one. On Tuesday morning, who comes bouncing into the office but Jane Mansfield?"
Bouncing is the word.
And after she went upstairs to talk to Charlie, she came downstairs, and I had a little cubicle at the foot of the stairs. And she stopped and she said, "You must be Charlie's new secretary." And I said, "Yes." And she says, "What's your name?" I said, "Ray Strait. Most folks call me Rusty." And she said, "Well, Rusty, I'm Jane Mansfield and I'm a movie star. How would you like to help me with my fan mail on weekends?" I did fan mail one weekend, and after that, for 10 years, I was like Jane's right arm.
And you, as you said, you went all over. You were on movie sets.
Oh, we went everywhere together.
I remember you on. You were on Merv Griffin's show.
Oh, I did Merv Griffin's show. Yeah. I did Mike Douglas. I did a lot of shows.
You did Cavett too, didn't you?
No, I never did Dick Cavett. No, I would have liked to because Dick Cavett had the most intellectual of all the shows.
Right.
And he did well when he had good guests. I mean, intelligence. Right. He didn't deal well with dummies. And most interviewers on talk show hosts, they don't like people who they can't communicate with because you know you're in an intelligence area and people are not dumb and they want somebody dumb to invite their uncle or their distant cousin over for dinner. Anyway, and so I didn't go with her. And we were once on a flight from
you mean the night of her death?
No, another time. Let me finish this.
Oh.
We were on a flight from New York to Chicago. We were going down to Dallas to see her mother. And this plane was all over the sky. It was very turbulent. And I remember I said to Jane, I said, "You know, Janie, I don't like to, I was in the Air Force for a long time and I flown a lot of planes, but I don't like the way this plane sounds today." She said, "Oh, honey, don't worry about it. When you travel as much as I do, law of averages will catch up with you." And I said, "Well, Janie, when the law of averages catch up with you, I don't want to be with you." And as luck would have it, I would have been driving the car that she was killed in if I'd been with her. I think some things are preordained. There's just nothing you can do about it.
No, you're right. And the thing that always struck me about that is that not only were you there, but the story of how you got the call and how you found out that she had died.
Oh, I got a call from the Associated Press it was about 11 o'clock at night here, I think. And my wife and I had just gone to bed. And they said, "Mr. Strait, do you have any comments about Miss Mansfield's death?" And I said, "Who is this?" And I hung up. I just didn't wait. I thought somebody's pulling my leg. And they called back again and said, "Please don't hang up. This is Associated Press in New Orleans." And then he told me, and for the rest of the next 2 weeks, my life was just a hailstorm and a tornado and everything else, because I had to audit her house and take toll of everything
Right.
she had in the house,
And that's
because her ex-husband and her
Right.
current husband didn't trust anybody
I was
else
just
to
going
do
to say
it.
that's a testament, because you were the only one that both of them.
That's the
trusted.
only one that both
and
of them
It was
approved
Matt
of.
Simber, right?
Matt Simber and Mickey Hargitay.
And they hated each
And
other.
her daughter Mariska Hargitay. I was there the day she was born.
Well, you have a picture, and you got to go if you know Rusty.
Well,
you got to see the picture.
Eddie has the picture of me and
We're
Jane,
gonna
and the
have that as the
picture
background.
of
We-
me and Mariska.
Yeah, we'll
up there.
eventually have that as the background.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful shot.
It's but anyway, my life, I've traveled all over and I've done it all. And I'm going to be 99 years old in May, and people say they think this and that and the other, but I think I'm just sort of a freak. My job seems to be in life is to sit around and watch other people die.
No, but here's the amazing thing, and again, this is as the weeks go on, and here's the other thing about Rusty. As the weeks go on, you're going to hear more about the people that he's known, and some he knew very intimately. But here's the amazing thing. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I always love to look up names and say, "Oh, Joe Blow," and who was he talking about? And the Rusty's delivery is so laid back, and he'll say, "Well, and I had dinner with him," and he did. He never forgets a date. He will correct me on things, and he never misses that. There's the spot. Eddie's going to bring it up.
There's
now.
Jane,
and then you should get the other one with
There's
him and
Jane
Mariska
and me,
Hargitay, the one that we had last
and the
week.
one when Mariska was
And-
taken in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, and she said, and I remember you telling me, Rusty, didn't she say? And here's the man who at one point raised me a little bit, right?
No,
Didn't
she
what
said. She said she saw me walking across the room, and I was dressed in a white suit, all dressed to the nines, and she said, "I see a man coming across the room, and he's going to be important in my life, I think." And she said, "And he already wins the award for the best dressed man here." And then she didn't recognize. I hadn't seen her since she was 11 years. She was 11 years old last time I saw her, when her older sister got married. And she said, and I had a picture of me and her father. Her mother and father. And I showed it to her, and she says, "Rusty!" and we were off to the races. And
That's
I'm very
cute.
close to all of Jane's children.
Yes, you speak regularly most with the youngest.
Was
ones.
Zoltan.
Zoltan,
He
you call
is
him,
the
right?
one that was chewed up by a lion at Lion Country Safari. I think it was up in on the north of Los Angeles.
Speaking of which, your other because you knew everybody in Hollywood. You have three books on their children, right?
I have 3 books called Star Babies, Hollywood Star Children, and Hollywood's Children.
And that's and again, there's Rusty. You will see. This is not a guy who didn't know these people and was just contracted to write about them, which is a cool gig if you can get. Rusty actually knew these people. You knew Tab Hunter. You knew Farley Granger. You knew Bob Hope. The thing that gets me as a writer is you knew Truman Capote and Tennessee Williams.
Tennessee Williams, and that's an interesting story, because when I was in the service, and I was stationed at Scottsville, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, and after I got out of the service, I went back to St. Louis, and I had met Joe McCormick during that period of time when I was there.
Tell the audience who's Joe McCormick.
Joe McCormick had a big house out near the park, and he used to have Sunday get-tos.
Right.
And I had met him through a lawyer friend that I met while I was stationed at Scott Field. And I used to go there on Sundays. And I sat up on the steps with this guy who just seemed to observe everybody. The steps that went upstairs and looked down on the living room. And we would talk a little bit, and I didn't know who he was. And one day I was introduced to him. He was Tennessee Williams. And we used to sit up there and have conversations about the people down in the living room.
And you said he was very kind of quiet and just
Very quiet,
introspective.
very shy. I did a radio show once with L. Ron Hubbard, another guy. He looked like some kind of an English gentleman.
Now, even that, I didn't know. You did a show with L. Ron?
Oh, yeah, yes, I did, when I first came to California.
So, speaking about well, go ahead if you wanted to talk about more about Tennessee Williams.
Well, and also, I met Truman Capote, and I used to go to his parties when he lived down in the Springs. and I was living in L.A. at the time, and then after I moved out here, and I remember once I was on the freeway driving one place in a convertible, and he was coming the other way. He's standing up, going the other way, waving at me.
And then, but you said he was waving at someone else on the other side. He had no hands on.
Yeah, he didn't have any hands on anything. He was just having a good time.
What did you tell me that you hollered out to him? Who the hell's steering the car?
Well, that's another story.
But speaking about the service, I don't, because this is Rusty, and it's all true. But you check it up, and it's there. You had a tie to this town, sort of without realizing it, because you're in the service. You were in the Air Force, which was at the time the Army Air Force. And tell me who did you'll know this name Tibbetts because was a builder here in town. But who did you used to play cards with? And
well, Paul Tibbetts, who flew the Enola Gay over Hiroshima, he was also stationed on Tinian.
And you were too, right?
And I was too. And he used to come down the flight line and play pinochle with the guys down there. He was a very, very friendly person.
And so this,
but I had no.
He was stationed in cards with the guy that dropped the bomb.
You know, I could never get a word in edgewise with him. He was stationed in a composite group. I think it was the 501st Composite Group, and I was in the 313th Bomb Wing, and it's right across the street. We knew something big was going on over there, but we had no idea. A lot of those guys came down to the Red Cross Club that was over on the other side of the island. Tinian was a 2x4 island. It wasn't very big at all, and it was across the bay from Saipan, and those guys all come down there and played, but nobody knew what they were doing, and we didn't know about the atom bomb until the day it was bombed. It dropped.
So you found out the day that it was...
Well, we all did. And I was working GCA at the time, and that's where ground-controlled landing. And so anyway, that's another story. My history with the service was I was all over. I was an air traffic controller in the Berlin Airlift. And in the English, yeah, stationed in the English zone, and going from a B-29 radio operator to I did a lot of things. You know something? People say they have regrets about their life. I have no regrets whatsoever. I've done everything I ever wanted to do in pretty much my own way. Have I had disappointments? Nothing serious. The only two things I wish I had done, because I sang with big bands for about 8 years, and before I ever thought about becoming a writer. And the only thing I regret that I didn't do, that I didn't learn to speak Spanish, and I didn't learn to play the piano. My mother taught piano. And if I had learned to play the piano, I probably would have never become a writer. I'd be singing some gin mill somewhere today, accompanying myself.
Well, let me ask you this. You brought up the Berlin Airlift, and you were there. You were the air traffic controller.
You know, I always like that. There used to be a saying on the radio. Somebody would say something, and the guy would say, "Was you there, Charlie?" I was there.
Oh, Joe Penner, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Joe Penner.
I think it was
Joe Penner is the one that said, "Yuck, yuck, yuck, you want to buy a duck."
Okay.
He always carried a duck under his arm.
Let me ask you this. What did you think of General George Marshall?
General George who?
Marshall, the Marshall Plan.
Oh, the Marshall. Well, he was great, and he became Secretary of State. He was one of the greatest statesmen we ever had.
And of course, now that you're bringing that up, I got to bring up your favorite, FDR.
Listen, everybody loved Roosevelt except some of the Republicans, and they couldn't call his name. They called him that man in the White House.
Now, what did you think of? Tell us how you met FDR. That's kind of ridiculous.
Look at this!
Oh,
look what we got here.
Eddie's serving us food.
Yes.
I can't. It's carbs.
I can yell out
one little piece.
Yeah, you can have that.
Two little pieces.
My cousin Bill and I.
Thank you, Eddie.
In September 1940, I think it was September the 3rd.
So you're about 16.
And I was just a kid, teenager, and we'd been fishing down the Kanawha River. And in Charleston, and we had a new boulevard, Canal Boulevard, and Roosevelt had sponsored it. And he was in town to visit DuPont because Charleston was the chemical center of the world at that time. They had all these chemical plants. And he was there to go to DuPont to do something, but he came up the boulevard, and we were coming up from the river, barefoot, overalls, and got up to the boulevard, and we saw all these crowds up there, and this car stopped in front of the courthouse, and it was this big touring car. And I saw him immediately, and it scared the hell out of me. And my cousin Bill, he couldn't speak, couldn't say anything. He just looked, and he says, "How's it going, boys?" And I said, "Well, they're not biting today, sir." And I was nervous as anything. I thought right away that somebody's going to grab me. And he said, "Well, I'm not doing too good. Come up here. I want to shake your hand." And he shook our hands, and we went about our business. Secret Service didn't even bother us.
Wow.
And
you were barefoot and everything.
well,
right?
we were just country boys. But no, that was one. I've had a lot of experiences. I tell you something. I had lunch with Wendell Wilkie when I was in New York.
I remember you telling me.
In 1942, I think it was.
So you would
And
have been,
I had
what,
lunch with
18?
him. I was singing at a club in the village, and he came in one night and requested a song, and I sang the song, and it was something that he liked that reminded him of something, and he asked me if I'd like to have lunch, and I thought I recognized him, but I didn't.
I'm laughing because I know the story you're about to talk about.
And anyway, so we went to the Commodore Hotel where the next day where Von Monroe, that's where he played at night. And
Vaughn Monroe?
Von Monroe
Okay,
played
cool.
at the Commodore. And so we were having lunch. Well, my grandmother used to make deep apple pie, and she'd make the syrup and put them in those little
Serving dishes.
those little folders, those little crinkled folders.
Oh,
things.
okay.
Yeah, like a muffin thing.
Okay.
And I saw it, and I took a sip of it. I thought I wasn't sure what it was, and he said, "I'll never forget what he said." He said, "Ray, that's the finger bowl," and that's one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. And I've had a
So
few.
you were drinking from the
I was drinking from the finger bowl.
drinking from the finger bowl.
Listen, I was so dumb, such a hillbilly. I wore two different kinds of socks. It wouldn't surprise you to see me with different pairs of shoes. One shoe, one. It was just. I was a country boy. I had everything to learn. I grew up in a holler
You
pretty
did
much.
pretty well for being a country.
Well,
for being a country
I
boy.
quit school in the 10th grade, and I just I went in the Navy before the war.
Right.
I'd been forging my mother's name on school notes from the teacher, answers, and so she wouldn't sign for me to go. So I forged her name, and took the thing into the Navy
Didn't they
recruitment.
first bring you back? Didn't they bring you
Well,
back?
I'll tell you what happened. I went to Norfolk and went through basic training. My mother found out where I was, and she contacted the Navy. And the captain called me up, and boy, he chewed me up one side and down the other about all the money they put in to train me. Because I just finished basic training. I went in on July the 26th and came out on 9/11, 41. 3 months later, I wouldn't have been out because the war was on.
Right.
And I was so angry with her that I didn't even, when I left the Navy, I stopped in a hotel in town, had somebody go over to the house to pick up my things, and took off to New York. I didn't speak to my mother for a long time. I was so angry with her
That she took you out of the war.
that she took me out. And it took me 3 years to get back in. And so that was my first experience. So
1949,
I have
you
served
were
in the
17.
Army, the Army Air Corps, the Navy, and the U.S. Air Forces. So 4 branches. Wow, can't
Yeah,
beat
not
that.
bad. 4
Not
branches.
bad for a kid from,
You know,
from the Hicks.
With Rusty, it's all numbers because you just the things that he's.
I
done,
remember things.
You don't,
And it's
you don't
because,
forget anything.
you know something, most people don't remember things because they don't listen.
Got it.
And, and people who get self-denial, they hide things in the closet of their mind, and then one day it busts open and they have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because if you deny it, you don't have to deal with it. But eventually, the books have to balance.
Now that's spoken like a therapist, which you also were for a while. You did.
Oh yes, I taught.
In
I
prisons?
taught over at Mount San Jacinto College over here. I taught codependent no more for a year, and I was the only one that I think they ever let teach anything that serious without a degree.
Got it.
Yeah, you want to get it open for me? See, it's nice to have an assistant.
I try. So now, I was joking around saying it's all about the numbers. How many times? How many times have you married?
3.
Well, you said 5. But
Married?
3 to the same.
No, I've been married 3 times, but 3 times to the same woman.
Right.
And that was because her ex-husband always said we were not legally married. That's another story, though. We gotta get enough of this stuff about me as we go along. But
I just wanted to
I'm
give
just
them a
trying
little
to
bit of
set the pace
background.
today of what we're
Yeah.
going to talk about. Folksy stuff that people can understand. Don't talk over people's head. It doesn't work.
How did you get started in the newspaper here? How did you get started writing in the newspapers here?
Well, I started doing stories. I was approached to do stories when I was working for Jane because she knew people in the press. You know, I was dealing with the press all the time. Walter Winchell, Luella Parsons, and the Hollywood Citizen News. A friend of mine had taken over as the editor of the paper, and they asked me if I'd like to do a column once in a while. Well, I got to where I was doing regular reporting for them, and it was a daily paper. And I came out here. I had no idea of ever getting involved in newspapers again. And the guy that Eric Erickson that owned the Chronicle that used to be the Chronicle, Valley Chronicle.
Yeah, Valley Chronicle.
And so he came to me one day because he heard I was writing books, and he had lived 5 years in China, and he wanted to know if I would help him write a book about Chinese finances. Well, I didn't know anything about Chinese finances. What the hell? Yeah. And so I told him, no, I don't do that. I said, but I would like to do a column once in a while for your paper. And I had no idea it was going to turn into paper got sold, and now I've been with them 6 years, going on 7 years. And that's longer than I ever wrote for a newspaper before, but I've written for magazines and newspapers all over the country and all over the world, actually. I've written for the London Times. And
You worked for a lot of magazines.
I worked for a lot of movie magazines. I
Yes.
used to write a lot of movie magazines.
Cornet, which was a
Coronet.
great
I
magazine.
wrote for Coronet.
Ramparts, I think
And
you
I
said.
have written for the National Enquirer.
Written for a lot of stuff.
And
Tell us about the first book and the whole background of that. Mrs. Howard Hughes. You had...
Well, Mrs. Howard Hughes. Now that's a connection that I had without knowing it. My stepmother and Jean Peters, who was Mrs. Howard Hughes, and Jean's mother worked at a department store, Lazarus Department Store, together in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, geez.
And I was approached by Holloway House, a Hollywood publisher,
Okay.
when they got their divorce, Howard Hughes and Jean, and it says, Mrs. Howard Hughes, how do you live with $1 billion? And that was my first book, and it had my name on every page, and I was so proud. I'm a published author. Well,
look at me.
It wasn't very much. It was in paperback. It wasn't even in hardcover, and it was just so interesting. And I wrote the book, and then when she made her comeback, she did Thornton Wilder,
Yeah, it was Our Town. Right?
Our Town, and I wrote about her. And she sent me a note thanking me for the thing. And I got a note from Frank Sinatra thanking me because I have it framed on the wall.
I've seen it. I've seen pictures with
He
you
was
and
known
Judy
not to
Garland.
like the press at all.
No.
And I was writing for the Virginia Gazette, the oldest paper in America. And I was doing a weekly story for him. And I was sending it, telegraphing it to him. And so I'm about to lose my train of thought here. Anyway,
talking
I
about
wrote
Jim
about, I
Peters.
said Sinatra, he'd done something for his father, and people were bad-mouthing him. And I said, You know, Frank Sinatra cannot be all bad. Anybody cares that much about his father. And I got, no too long after that, I got a card from him saying, "Thank you, Mr. Strait."
I saw the card on
I
the
saw
wall.
it on the wall, yeah.
Yeah.
And he says, "I wish you well in what you do." And Sinatra didn't compliment the press on anything.
He punched out the one reporter.
Yeah, oh yes, he did.
At least one.
At least one.
But I've seen, if you go to Rusty's house, and I'm blessed because I get to visit Rusty a couple times.
I've looked at pictures.
He's got more, and he's got stuff that you just say, "Wait, oh, that's Mickey Hargitay." Then he's got Rusty with him. He's got pictures of Judy Garland, and even, which nobody knows except you and me, but Rudy Frimmel, who was a great pianist, and
Rudolph Frimmel was like
composer.
my father. He was so good to me because when I was working for Jane, I was doing, before I started traveling with her, I was doing a lot of secretarial work for Charlie's clients, because I met a lot of writers and musicians when I worked for him. And I worked for him and Jane at the same time for quite some time. And he, Rudy was so good to me. And when my wife was pregnant with our first child, he didn't get along very well with his kids. And he said to me, "Ray, you'd be so sorry you had children."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're talking about Rudy Frimmel and other composers. You were
And
with,
Freddie Grove Fay was a good friend of mine.
who was
Wrote the Grand Canyon Suite.
That's right,
Yeah.
and also was one of the. He directed the Rhapsody in Blue.
Yep.
Right. Freddie Grove with Paul Whiteman's band. Did you ever get to meet Paul Whiteman?
No.
I'm just going to throw some names out because I love when I do this. Other than Lionel Hampton, you can look up Lionel Hampton's incredible vibraphone player. Did you ever get to you met? I know you met, so I'm going to throw out his name, Glenn Miller, right? Who asked you what you wanted to
No,
hear?
I never met Glenn Miller.
Didn't you tell me he asked
No,
you
Tex
what you wanted to
Beneke.
hear?
I met Tex Beneke, who
was
his
the
saxophone player. No, Tex told me that if Glenn had lived, he was killed over the channel. His plane went down over the channel on December, right around Christmas time in 1944. And Tex told me when he was here at Saboba, he played at, he brought his band to Saboba, yeah. And I went backstage and talked to him because I had met him before.
Gotcha.
And he told me, said if Glenn had lived, there would have never been rock and roll because he had the kids in the palm of his hand, and he did. Everybody loved Glenn Miller. Everybody loved Roosevelt. It was just, the 40s was the greatest decade of my life.
Well, and I've asked this before, and you had a quote from Helen O'Connell.
She said, if I thought I was part of an era, I would have kept notes.
And you didn't have to keep notes because you're amazing, and I'm getting actually some questions here. People are kind of already texting me and hitting me up, but and you might too. So hopefully, and you met Helen. Did you meet Helen O'Connell? You said you.
Oh
met
yeah,
Helen O'Connell.
she did Four Girls 4 with Rosemary Clooney,
Oh, yes.
Rosemary, and Margaret Whiting.
And you knew Margaret White?
I knew Margaret Whiting very well.
And speaking about Rosemary Clooney, who is, they used to call her the White Ella Fitzgerald, amazing voice. Because she's the godmother of...
2 of my children.
Right. And she confided in you when she had some mental and emotional problems after RFK. You said
she was at the Coconut Grove the night that Robert Kennedy was killed. And she couldn't believe it. She just went berserk, and they had to put her in a mental health hospital, yeah, for a while, and she just went over the deep end on it because she couldn't handle it. She thought there was a plot of some sort, and I loved Rosie. She was. I did a book with her.
You did, and
called "This for Remembrance," and you know why that was that title?
No,
because rosemary is an herb that is called as a rosemary. This for remembrance from Shakespeare.
Oh my, okay. And so now tell me, what did she say? And she said later that she had gone into this really dark place, but that she had looked out her window from the facility.
There was a big thing of Patty Page, big signboard, and she always thought Patty Page was out to get her.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, even
that's
after
when she was going through all of that.
Right, just with all the mental issues and the mental health and the emotional stuff. Let me ask you this too, and I'm sure you heard it live. But you had a wonderful piece a couple of years ago when I had first started, and we met about Moonlight Serenade, which I'm sure you heard a million times.
Well, I
live,
think it's the greatest
personally.
love song ever written.
You do, okay.
Yeah.
And what did you tell us? What did the readers about that song? That it was actually used, and it's still used, right? It's still used.
It's used at high school proms.
right now. Today,
Well, yeah,
right
it's
now.
very popular as the final thing of the night when they're getting ready to close off.
So I'll throw some names out. You tell me. Judy Garland.
You know, I met Judy. Her daughter, Lorna.
Lorna Luft.
Luft is one of my star babies.
Yes. Okay.
In my book Star Babies. But I was at the Continental Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard. They had a patio out, stretched almost out to the feet on the second floor, I think.
Okay.
And I was in there having coffee one afternoon, and in comes Judy Garland. She sat down at a table close to me,
Okay.
and we were both sitting alone. And she looked over at me and she says, "Don't you just hate sitting alone in a restaurant?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Can I join you?" I said, "Sure." And we sat there, and all she did was talk about her children. And the picture that you saw of me and Judy,
Halloween, yeah.
and on Halloween I was dressed up in the sailor outfit, was at Nancy Bacon's house. Now Nancy was a baker, was a model and an actress and a writer, and she's dead now, but she was one of my best friends. But they took a picture of me and Judy, and I had I have a picture
snapped
taken
a
at
great
that
picture.
party with Henry Miller.
Right, Henry Miller.
Yeah. I've been privileged to know a lot of famous people without being famous myself.
Well, you're pretty famous. You were known to a few of us who loved movies.
Well, I'm infamous.
Infamous. Okay. So let me ask you. This. I'm just going to throw out a few more names. We had Judy Garland. I know you got the letter.
We got to wind this up pretty soon.
We are. So I know you got the letter from Sinatra. Who was your favorite actor from that era?
Oh God,
And I'll throw out some other names to you.
my favorite actor. Well, I liked a lot of people. I liked Laurence Olivier. I liked Frederick March.
March was great.
Well, I
Mark's a
thought
wonderful
that
actor.
one of the greatest movies, Satan Takes a Holiday, is one of the greatest movies I ever saw in my life.
Yes.
And one of the most frightening.
One of my mom was scared to death.
Yeah,
from
that was a
Death,
fright.
Death Takes a Holiday, was it?
Death Takes a Holiday, yes.
Yeah, and my mom, him and who was the actress? Rochelle
Hudson.
And let me say,
Rochelle Hudson and Warren Williams.
and Warren Williams, very good. That's right. Yeah, you do remember things.
I do remember things.
What is your favorite saying? I know these things.
I know these things, yes.
So let me ask you a couple of other. Did you ever meet Clark Gable?
Once.
And you said he was kind of standoffish. You really
He
didn't get a
was-
chance to talk to him.
And he wasn't tall as I thought he would be.
Interesting. How about
Alan Ladd was very short.
Alan, that was very short.
Yeah.
You got to meet Alan. How about Spencer Tracy?
I don't think I ever met Spencer Tracy. I may have met him somewhere, but I don't remember.
How about William Powell? Remember the old actor?
Oh, William Powell, I loved him. Him, Carol Lombard was so good in so many things.
Yeah, they were. They were very good. My man Godfrey.
My man Godfrey the
Excellent.
Butler.
Excellent. And how about Katharine Hepburn?
I may have met her. I'm not sure.
I think I asked you about this. I'm cutting you off
Yeah.
for a reason. But what was the difference? Because you met both of them and you knew Jane Mansfield very well. What was the difference between Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield?
I had lunch with Jane and Marilyn.
And Marilyn.
And
Were they
Marilyn at the
rivals?
Fox
Did they
at the Fox commissary.
Let me ask you: did they dislike each other?
No, they're laughing about it.
Really?
You know the difference that I saw between Jane and Marilyn. Marilyn was sort of a pale nymphette. Jane was a full flush woman. Marilyn was used by men. Jane used men.
Yeah, I love that saying, and I was hoping you would say that because you had said that to me before.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So Jane,
If the Jane gas jockey or the president, it didn't matter.
she was gonna, yeah, she was
Yeah.
gonna, she was a person of conquest, I guess, where it came to men. Speaking about gas jockey, there's an interesting book, and you knew the guy. It's called Full Service, and you knew Scotty. What was his name?
I can't remember his last name, but he's the one that wrote about how he serviced all these sexually, yeah.
And you knew him, and you knew a lot of his clients, right? You knew-
Well, of course, he used to come college in Hollywood.
Is it Morrison? Scotty Morrison?
No, it's not Morrison. I can't think of his name. But anyhow, they did a movie from his book, and I saw that movie. But he used to, a guy named David. I can't remember his last name, but he used to make these sculptures, these teak wood sculptures and things.
In
And he
LA,
used to
right?
hang out in Hollywood.
In Hollywood.
And he used to hang out. Scotty used to hang out at his place. And so did Gore Vidal.
And one of your favorite novels is Gore Vidal's.
Anything Gore Vidal wrote is my favorite.
Yeah, what was the one? Not Locksley Hall. What was the?
He did that in 1946. Not A Thirsty Evil. That's a different one. I can't remember what it was, but it was a book about being gay.
Shadow Falls.
And I don't recall it offhand.
Marble Halls or something.
No.
I know. Yeah, okay.
But he wrote the book, and he was condemned by everybody, but he won all kinds of prizes for the book.
Yeah, it was
he was
wonderful.
way ahead of his time.
Who's your favorite author?
Today, my favorite author today is John Grisham. I have every one of his books that he's ever written in first edition.
Really?
Oh, I love his books because they're so folksy and it's so easy to read. Reading should be something easy. Not you're going to write a textbook. Write a textbook. You know, I believe in storytelling.
Right.
And
right.
I am a
No,
storyteller.
you are the greatest. I've always said I've been blessed to know the greatest writer in the city, which is Jim Hitt, and the greatest storyteller, which is far and away yourself. And since we're going to close, give the people just some ideas of what's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I'm going to be doing interviews. I'm going to have guests on the show because you and I can gab and it gets old. It's not going to be a political show. Politics may come up by elected officials that I might have on the show from time to time.
Right.
But I want to have doctors. I want to have different people, insurance people, automobile people, people that people deal with on an everyday basis. I want this to be personal, me to you, the public.
Got it.
And anyway, Eddie's around here someplace.
He's
Ready?
around
We're
here.
about
We're getting
ready
ready
to
to
shut
close.
down for today.
And I love you, and I can't wait to do it again next
Oh, I can't wait either. I thought when I sat down to start this thing, what am I going to talk about? And I haven't shut up since we started.
Well, that's okay.
Eddie, thank you
All right,
for
Eddie.
giving me the privilege of doing this.
Hey, it's an honor to have you here, Rusty. Appreciate everything you do.
I'm going to enjoy looking forward to this thing. And I do want one thing I want to say. I'd like to get former Fire Chief Scott Brown on my show.
I'd love to see
Oh,
that.
that'd be wonderful.
I would like to see that because I liked
Wonderful,
him.
Good man.
He's got a lot
Anyway.
to say, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, and maybe up the road we'll talk someday about the two cities merging in the valley, which I think they should have done a long time ago. We got three different chiefs. You got the Hemet Police and the county police and you got county over in San Jacinto. And San Jacinto is growing so much faster than Hemet. And I don't understand why, because we got all of Val Vista over there. That's fertile field. This is the open spaces.
But we'll get into that later. But I think you would also then we'd have to change the type of city government we have. Probably.
Well, I don't want to get into all of that.
Strong mayor, but I think we'll
Yeah,
talk about that later.
I don't want to talk about the politicians per se, but and I'll talk a lot about Hollywood,
Okay.
of course, in the entertainment business, because people always like that.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
and you got a lot. You got a
all
lot
the
of
books I've written, and people say, you know what they ask me? How was it? How was Jane Mansfield?
Yeah, no.
You know, people are hungry and hung up on
I still
celebrity.
get people that talk to me about that. You know, my buddy Al. So
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Just ask me to ask you all kind of questions. So Eddie, we'll throw it back to you, and
All right, Eddie.
we'll close it out.
Thanks for having me, and I'll see you next time.
Repeat his email address?
repeat your email address.
Oh, my email address, yes. It's rustystrait, STRAIT, at gmail.com. And I'd give you my phone number, but I don't like to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And Eddie, you said there will be next week. We can have a call in. We'll have a phone number.
Yeah, I'll set it up.
Okay,
where you
so
guys
Eddie will
can
set
do
that
Yeah,
up.
I will take call-ins, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because there's nothing like Rusty, literally off the cuff, straight from the hip. So
My mother said don't talk while you're eating, and I'm
Well,
just sitting here
You know,
blabbing.
you're eating while you're talking.
Yeah.
So it's a different story.
all right, thanks, pal.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. You guys tune
Bye-bye,
in next
y'all.
Saturday at 12 o'clock.